That then real quick before I go to the next question. Are there any other achievements that you feel that are a staple for Commissioner Brandon Dillon when we look at you for the 75th House District?
Well, I think my record as a whole has been pretty consistent with what I campaigned on. I said we're going to make change, and we actually did it. I said we were going to take on the status quo, and we did it. I think the single most thing I'm most proud about is about a year ago, the Attorney General in Michigan came to Grand Rapids with a big check for $500,000 from a settlement where people got essentially manipulated by Countrywide Mortgage. That was a class action suit that the state of Michigan joined. He had $500,000 of that money that he had discretion over, and he was coming to Grand Rapids, and he was going to give it to Peter Secchia and Grand Action to help at Millennium Park and Crescent Park. And immediately one of the things I said was, that's not what this money's intended for. This money is intended for victims of foreclosure and to try to help people stay out of foreclosure. And it's not just because that helps those people, it's because it helps the entire community. Every time you have a foreclosed home, every house within a mile of that's property value goes down 1%. Mm-hmm. Every time you have a foreclosed home, the quality of life in a neighborhood goes down. So every penny we can get to make sure that people are able to stay in their homes is important. We put pressure on the Attorney General at the local level. It was me and some of the city commissioners, and then some of the state legislators kicked in. After a week of saying he was going to take that money to Lansing, the Attorney General caved in, gave $500,000 to our local United Way, which has redistributed that money to a lot of different agencies. But Home Repair Services, which is one of the agencies that received a lot of that money, recently came out with a report, and they have been able to exponentially increase the amount of people that they're able to keep in their home now because they took that money and hired counselors and other people to be able to be intermediaries between them and their mortgage company. So that had a real direct positive impact, and it was because I think it was common sense and not being afraid to take on people who are in a position of power, and I think that's the kind of thing I'd like to continue to do. So that's the thing I'm most proud of.
Commissioner, you were on the Health Advisory Committee. Can you explain the role of that committee and your role on that committee, and kind of, I guess, specifically detail how it would affect minorities here in Grand Rapids, Black and Latinos more specifically?
Yeah, the Community Health Advisory Committee, actually, I'm the chair of that committee, and because of this arrangement we have at the County Commission, I'm the first Democrat, I think, that's ever chaired any committee that was ever created by the county. So that was really an honor to do that. That committee has actually, its power has been weakened over the years. We used to have a board called the Public Health Board, which oversaw the health department. It had a direct role. We folded that in. Now the entire commission, the health department is answerable to the entire commission. What the Community Health Advisory Committee does is kind of tries to steer some of the internal issues within the health department. But one of the things I've tried to focus on in the little over a year that I've been on that is to try to make it less of a cheerleading organization for the health department and more of a citizens group that tries to hold the health department accountable. One of the things I think we did really well, and I don't think this was the advisory committee, but the health department, with the help of the advisory committee, was how we dealt with the H1N1 issue. Sure. And how we were, I think Kent County was at the forefront in the state of being proactive and getting those that medicine out into the community, whether it was through private providers. But we basically told the state of Michigan, get lost, when they said we had to hold on to it.
Right.
The director of the health department called me and just said, do you think it's okay if we just release this because it's going to sit here? And I said, absolutely. Well, the Department of Community Health wasn't happy, but at the end of the day, it got out there. I think the health department as a whole has a really strong role to play in actually being more proactive and outreaching into the minority community, whether it's Hispanic, African American, or even just the underclass, the people that are served by those. We had an issue when I first got elected. We canceled the program that relied on federal dollars because we were afraid that at some point in the future we were going to lose funding for it. And that was a program that served essentially at-risk mothers and their children. And it was a program that had nurses coming into the home before and after pregnancy, which at that time, and if it was still being utilized, disproportionately has a positive impact on people in the minority community.
Sure.
Some of the commissioners, we kicked and screamed and ultimately weren't successful, but I think where I'd like to see the health department go is to use those increasingly dwindling resources to impact programs like that. Because we know that if you spend money on the front end on a whole host of problems, we are going to avoid spending a lot of money on the back end. And the more you can get people healthy at the beginning of their life, the better they're going to be able to proceed, whether it's through grammar school, high school, college. We can keep kids from getting lead poisoning. We know that that not only has a positive impact on those kids, but also has a positive impact on our school system, because we have less kids who are going to require special ed services. So the more money we can spend on that, and that's what I think, I'm trying to focus on that committee. It's a committee that doesn't have as much power as it used to have, but we're trying to be proactive. We've got some new members on there who I think are a little younger and have a little bit more aggressive idea about what we should be doing, and I'd like to continue doing that. But the health department, I think, is where we really need to focus as a county on getting those services out to the community.
Because of the polarization that we see in Washington, and because of some of the stalemates that we see in Lansing on a consistent basis these days in the news, are you afraid of any backlash for being an incumbent, for being a politician already?
No. I would be if I thought I hadn't done anything. I do think there is that idea out there in the public that the system is broken and that the people who are in charge are to blame. And I think that's entirely justified. But I wouldn't run for this office if I didn't think I could actually do something positive. And I wouldn't run if I didn't think I already had a record that showed that I haven't just been sitting there collecting dust. I've been actually trying to be positive, try to affect change. And the thing I think people are most looking for is not just to say throw everybody out, but they're looking at who actually can be effective, who's going to do things that they say that they're going to do when they get in office. And if you look back at what I campaigned on and what I've been able to accomplish, I would defy anybody to try to find anything that I said I was going to try to do and haven't either done or really put an effort into doing. So to the extent that I can take the record, and I know people want to say career politicians, their careers are getting a lot shorter now because I've only been in office 3 years. But if people want to say that because I've been in office and I've been effective and I've been actually able to do the things that I said I was going to do as a negative, I can't control that. But I think at the end of the day, people are looking for people, whether they're in the public sector or the private sector or the nonprofit sector, who actually have a record and an ability to get things done and to do what they say they're going to do. If that's the standard that I'll be judged on, I don't think I'm going to have any problem.
Commissioner, I ask every politician who is seated here in your seat at the hot spot, do you think there's any hope of bipartisan activity on the state and national level?
Yes. I know it doesn't seem that way when you look at the way things are going, but I think, I'm running for the state legislature. And not only do I think there's a possibility for it, I think there's a necessity for it. I don't think we're going to actually see anything get done unless Democrats and Republicans can try to find those areas where they have some agreement and make the tough decisions that they have to make. And sometimes it's going to be Democrats making decisions that their base supporters and interest groups don't like, and it's going to be Republicans that have to do the same thing. But the only way we're going to actually have structural change in the system is to do that. And I look at what we've done at the county level. People said at the time that this was a Republican old boys club. We had 16 Republicans and 3 Democrats when I first ran for office. We now have 11 Republicans and 8 Democrats, and we have a bipartisan power sharing agreement that people said wasn't possible. Part of it is, part of bipartisanship is being partisan. You have to have strong beliefs and strong principles, and you have to stand up and fight for them. But at the end of the day, you also have to recognize that people on the other side feel just as strongly about the issues they care about. And where you have to be effective as a public servant or a politician or a legislator is to find those areas of agreement, figure out where you can connect, and then move forward and don't look back.